It is time to let it rip. All right, there's renewed interest in gun control, but would tighter restrictions really prevent another mass shooting? Joining us right now this morning is, he says, the first one here, Tharon X. He says that the tragedy in Orlando might have been minimized if gun laws were less strict. From WAAM, Talk Radio 1600, welcome back, Tharon X. Next to him, a prominent trial attorney. He says if we don't toughen up those gun laws and change who gets those guns, there will be more Orlandos in the future. Welcome, Attorney Ben Johnson. And she's worked for mayors, the city of Detroit, and the weekday afternoon voice of Superstation 910, who says the only way to really stop gun violence is to change the culture of those who use guns. Karen Dumas, thank you so much here. Tharon X, let me start with you, though. Would you agree, though, that those on the no-fly zone should not get guns?
Absolutely. But I also want to know who's picking out who's on the no-fly zone and making sure that's airtight, that you don't wind up by mistake. What's his name? Steve Hayes, I think, from Fox News was on the no-fly zone, and he had no reason to be on. I mean, sometimes a name gets on by accident. But yes, absolutely. We don't want crazy people to have guns. But the members of Congress can change that easily, and they haven't changed it yet. I don't know what the members of Congress do anymore. I really don't. I mean, that's truly up in the air. They're all over the place. You can't trust the conservatives to be conservatives. You can definitely trust the progressives to be progressive and snatch guns.
I think one of the issues is that the shooter in Orlando had been investigated by the FBI 2 or 3 times prior. The Orlando police had no knowledge of that. Now, because the shooter was cleared, that information, perhaps that's why they didn't have access to it. But is this the Monday morning quarterback situation? Are we now looking back saying, oh, well, they should have done this or seen this? Or are there problems, are there loopholes there that need to be closed and fixed?
The answer is both. Yes, we're Monday morning quarterback, and of course we are. But what we see is it's continuing to happen, and there's a real strong coincidence here, and I use that word because I don't believe in it. When we see these huge rifles that are being used in repeated mass shootings, folks, we don't need rifles like that to be out in the general public, period. The easy part is the thing that we just got an admission, Charlie, thanks for asking, is what can we do in terms of no-fly zone? No-brainer, got to be done. What else can we do? And I'm not interested, by the way, in taking legitimate registered guns away from folks that don't have the emotional problems and so forth. I don't have a problem with any of that. I think my views are changing in my old age, Charlie.
Van, do gun laws really stop radical terrorists?
Probably not.
No, absolutely.
But we have to do something, ladies and gentlemen. We're watching the richest nation in the world who's literally shooting each other up. And let me just turn a little bit of a focus away from just the mass shooting. What do we see in courtrooms every single day, Charlie? We see people who, because they have easy access to guns, both legitimately and illegally, I should say, they shoot each other because they're angry at each other because the dog bit or the car got in their parking spot and so forth. So then what we want to say is, wait, guns don't kill people, people kill people. They both kill people. But my point is we have to make it where people have to go through at least some type of registration, like anything. How about a car, Charlie? I can't just walk off the bed and get a car. I have to go through the state.
You just screamed fire in a crowded theater. This is the mantra. We have to do something. Yeah, what we have to do is start educating kids at kindergarten level that gun is nothing more than a machine. It's a piece of metal.
Yeah, give them guns and they can shoot each other in school,
right?
They should have guns so they can shoot each other in school.
What a stupid comment.
That's exactly what you think. That's exactly what you say.
Karen Dumas, your take on this.
I believe people have a right to own a weapon. I do believe in that. I don't think that you can legislate or regulate stupidity or recklessness. Amen. I mean, you cannot do it. I agree that you do have to teach kids at as early age what an actual weapon is, but we live in a society that is built on violence. We see it at every level, and that is how we are taught and to respond to things, and we think it's okay that if we are upset, we shoot. I mean, I see people at the gun range, and they're shooting like they're in a movie or a video. I mean, we have to take the appeal out of violence and understand that a gun is for a responsible, sane person. There is no need for an AK-47 under any circumstances. And we can't keep talking about what we have to do, because this will die down shortly until the next massacre.
Do you know where an AK-47 comes in? 3 months there's been no electricity, and they haven't seen a cop in 2. Okay? Now, has that happened? Oh, yeah, many times. In our American history? No. But you never know what you're going to need, when you're going to need it. So to vilify the machine, that's like, we got to get rid of all Escalades because a drunk driver took out a school bus with an Escalade.
But because a person can get a weapon, whether you have to go through 20 forms of application or pay a fee, you're going to always be able to get weapons illegally. So, I mean, but as long as the NRA is one of the largest lobbyists, then we're not going to even get to that
I'm
point.
A lifetime member, by the way.
Congratulations.
Awesome. Good for you. That doesn't mean you give guns to people. Make it like, you jump out of bed and you can grab a gun.
You can't in Vermont. You can't in Vermont. How many mass shootings in Vermont? And right now,
let me ask Karen, or maybe Venner, by having an increase in gun laws, are we punishing or blaming law-abiding citizens?
I don't think so. No. Go ahead.
But it's just like I said, it's no different to me than what we do for getting a car license. We don't just give it to somebody. You have to go through a state-sponsored course and prove proficiency. And if you have mental illness, if you have seizures, if you have medical conditions that prevent you from being able to operate it, you have to prove that you can do so.
That's the law.
We don't have an amendment in the Constitution that says anything about driver's licenses. That's the difference. Don't look at a driver's license as being morally equivalent with the Second Amendment.
Without knowing why.
But you need new checks and balances, though. Obviously, if guns are too accessible to people who do have mental illnesses, to people who do have the intention to go out and shoot up a school or shoot up a club.
You got to go back to what he said. You can't stop crazy. You literally can't stop crazy.
So that's it? Can't stop crazy?
Everybody
That's it?
No, that's not it. You need to be prepared against crazy. All you can do with crazy is kill it.
So if everybody has a gun, I mean, then we turn every city into the Wild Wild West. I mean, there has to be
nonsense.
That's not nonsense. I mean, you have to have some form of regulation. You do have to tighten. You do have to tighten the loopholes. But just like people go out and people drive without driver's license and they end up in car accidents. You're not supposed to drink and you're not supposed to drink and drive.
So
how many times are people killed because of a drunk driver? So
let's ban all cars.
No,
there's certain cars.
No one's saying that. No one's saying ban all guns.
You're
Maybe you're not
the same equivalent
left
of
ear,
our
man.
guns.
Left ear, listen.
And you're a member of the NRA. There's an example right here.
There's a security guard there, Charlie. There's a cop there with a gun. Don't forget.
Right.
I heard yesterday from Mr. Trump and his wisdom.
Yes.
And if everybody had a gun, it wouldn't have happened. There was a cop, off-duty cop there with a gun.
And he was the reason they drove the guy back into the back of the bar.
Mr. X.
Still was there.
Tyrone, answer Karen's question. She raised it. The question, I think, is what is a legitimate non-Second Amendment argument to have an AK-47 or an AR-15 like this shooter used in Orlando?
Well, first of all,
non-Second Amendment argument.
All rifles are just nothing more than a tube that a bullet flies through. Who cares if it's got 30?
So everybody can have a nuclear weapon as long as they use it responsibly. Is that also a legitimate argument?
Go ahead.
Well, I'd actually like to have a nuclear weapon.
I'm sure you would.
But there's a certain level where you say, okay, we're not going to have howitzers. But a rifle, it makes more sense to have in the house for self-defense than an actual handgun does.
So give me, I don't know
what house do you live in?
A non-Second, everybody says a Second Amendment, different than driving a car. But what do you need these for?
It's not a question of need. It's a question of I have a right to have it if I want it. If I want it, I have a right to have it. And as long as I'm a responsible, law-abiding citizen, to your question, by the way, or your point, gun laws punish the law-abiding only. They don't punish the criminal. You take all guns off the street, Mexican drug cartel is going to add a new product to their line of distribution.
Some of the people, who do these were law-abiding citizens. They had all the proper licensing that they needed to get a gun. From 2001 to 2014, there were 133 mass shootings in the U.S. Number 2 was Germany at 6. So there is something wrong.
All but 2 took place in gun-free zones. That's what's wrong. If I've got a right to defend myself and I'm armed and I see somebody come through that door, it's going to make a lot less carnage if I take them out. Oh, not to his point. Oh, but I'm going to shoot somebody else by accident or there's going to be blood in the streets. It's not. It never is.
You guys call it collateral damage, I think.
No, collateral damage is what the progressives describe as us who are not armed and we get killed waiting for the police to show up.
I don't have a problem having a real licensed, registered gun, sir. Maybe you didn't hear my point a half hour ago. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is where we make it easy for people who clearly, the guy goes to Walmart, folks, while his wife and his kid, or his ex-wife and his kid, are in the toy section. He's getting these bullets and so forth to shoot out an entire. But no problem. We'll just sell it to anybody off the street. That's insane.
All right, let's hold this thought for a moment. We're going to keep this discussion going. Congress is going to take up the issue. No-fly lists, as well as what about sewing up loopholes, people buying guns at these shows. There's more to that. Also, we really want to hear from you. Use the hashtag #LetItRipWeekend, and you may very well see your comments on the end of the show. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Let It Rip Weekend. Would more controls on guns prevent another Orlando? Joining me on the program right here, Thayrone X talk show host, attorney Ben Johnson, and the one and only Karen Dumas.
All right, so let's start with this. This is a clip that has made national headlines this week. An Al-Qaeda member talking about how easy it is to get guns right here in the U.S.
In the West, you've got a lot at your disposal. Let's take America as an example. America is absolutely awash with easily obtainable firearms. You can go down to a gun show at the local convention center and come away with a fully automatic assault rifle without a background check and most likely without having to show an identification card. So what are you waiting for?
So here we are, the proverbial we, saying it's not the problem with guns, it's not here, it's not us. Terrorists are saying, oh, it's so easy to get guns in America. What do you say to that, Thayrone?
Well, first of all, anybody with a beard down to their nipples and a turban on talking about guns or not guns makes me nervous right off the bat.
Well, he says it's easy to get them here, so address the issue.
Well, I'm not saying it's not easy. As I mentioned earlier, in the state of Vermont, you can walk into a store right now today, grab a gun, stick it in your pocket, walk out. No license needed. It's always been like that. In fact, Bernie had to talk against that when he was accused of being so liberal in his state on guns. And the access to guns is not what makes somebody go off. Crazy is what makes somebody go off. It doesn't matter how easy they are to get or not get. We got to educate against crazy. We got to keep a lid on crazy.
What does that do when you have terrorists saying themselves, we don't care about what you think about mental health laws. We know it's easy to get a gun here.
You can't negotiate with a terrorist. You can't stop them from getting a gun. All you can do is kill a terrorist, straight up.
Ben Johnson, though, you've got a point here. What's going on here?
Well, what scares me is we hear obviously a slur against someone with a long beard and a turban, and I guess we just write out all Muslim and Islam. I mean, we have lunatics all across the world, ladies and gentlemen, and anybody who doesn't see the scary part of this mass shooting over the course of the many years, it's been primarily white men that have done this. The whole thing scares me, and what I think we need to do as a society, but since I'm a white older male, let's talk about it, y'all, is we have to look at what's happening to us. What are we doing? What's the switch that turns off in these people that make it's okay to go play Batman in a movie theater and shoot, or go to an elementary school and shoot kids? And a lot of us, we need to look at us, not all these other outside things that never have guns. What's going on within us as a society that scares?
Are you saying white men are becoming
Who are the terrorists, Charlie? Yes. Who are the terrorists that have done the most damage across our country in these shootings? They look a lot like these two.
Karen,
let me say this. I just got a light bulb while he was saying that. Are we going to start now treating guns the way we're responding to the heroin product, the heroin problem? Now that it's starting to proliferate the white community, then maybe now we'll start to get some answers and a different kind of response.
Well, white people are the root of all evil. We know that, but we got to get past that because white people have brought a lot of good stuff to the party. I mean, really, when it comes down to it.
You're changing the conversation.
Wow.
And you're about to introduce
the answer is you can't just.
This guy's nervous because
no, you can't say because he's Muslim, take a gun away from him. The answer is you have to have honest, discussion and laws
Yeah,
about
and
how
honest
to have
discussion is the
guns.
majority of killings are done by Islamist terrorists all across this
what
world.
country
See,
are you
that's why
from?
we'll
I'm
never
from
do
America,
because he's so rigid and myopic in his perspective, and you won't allow that to go beyond your political beliefs, that you won't see the reality of the problem enough to try to resolve it.
Okay, here, let's resolve it. I want anybody out there that subscribes to the faith of Islam to renounce Sharia tomorrow, and boom, terrorism goes away. Renounce it.
You can't be serious.
Renounce
Okay.
Sharia. I'm dead
You
serious.
can't be
Sharia
serious.
is what it falls out of.
Listen,
and if you don't know that, read the
the mass shooting in South Carolina.
That's a
at the church.
psychotic outlier. He's a
Okay,
nutcase.
so anything that
Again,
was
you can't
not
stop
done.
crazy.
People
Okay, right.
recognize
So
it.
all of that is
Go on,
crazy.
Timothy McVeigh.
Unless
Go
it's
ahead.
right.
Keep
But
discussing.
You
this is
can't stop
ridiculous.
crazy.
It's ridiculous.
There's two.
Let me
There's
go back.
two.
Let
How
me go back
many
to Karen's- let me
Islamists?
go back
There's
to
two. How
Karen's
many
point.
Islamists?
Listen, Congress will take up the issue of the gun show issues as well as the no-fly list. But Karen, is it your point, though, that because we're seeing more white terrorists or white shooters that now Congress is taking action?
Well, I mean, it just
Was that
happened
your
to
point?
hit. It just happened. Yes, it was my point. It just happened to hit me when I heard Vin say that, because drugs have destroyed the urban community for decades, and now that heroin, there's a different response. There's a different level. So I'm just saying maybe. I don't know. I didn't think about it until I heard him say it. So perhaps.
So if this guy in Orlando was a black shooter, Congress would forget about it.
I don't
the
know.
point-
Maybe just go ahead, Murray. I'm sorry.
The point is that you cannot just put one thing in a box and say, okay, well, these are terrorists. Sandy
right.
Hook, that was a white guy.
That's absolutely right.
Virginia Tech shootings, that wasn't terrorism. Okay.
It's crazy. Again, it's crazy. People go
Oklahoma
crazy, and you can't stop.
Therefore,
By the way, what
do
stops
there need
crazy?
to be changes to gun legislation?
What stops
laws?
crazy, by the way? Somebody coming in with a firearm and taking crazy down every
So
time.
one
every
crazy
time.
person
Sometimes
shoots the
treatment
other
and
crazy
therapy,
person.
though. Let's not talk about
Not
that.
once you're
But
shooting
let me just say,
people.
Ron, you're okay, though, just so I'm okay, that if I go to a gun show today, I can get, according to what we just heard, an automatic, not even a semi-automatic, but an automatic rifle. You don't want that, right?
By the way, that's a lie. When you go to a gun show, you're going to get checked. They're going to go through a NICS check on you.
But we
Can I
know
get an
that doesn't
automatic weapon at a
happen
gun
every
show?
gun show. We know
Are
that
you
doesn't
against
happen.
me getting an automatic weapon at a gun show?
I'm not against you getting an automatic weapon anywhere.
That was very illegal.
By the
though.
way, it's illegal to get an automatic weapon unless you buy the tax stamp for what's called a machine gun, but you can get a semi-automatic weapon.
I understand semi, but you're okay with the automatic weapons?
I think we should be able to get automatic weapons.
Automatic weapons?
What?
Yes.
Well, that's...
Oh, what a
well, that's-
shock.
well,
Just
we
to
should
have
be a
it.
responsible society.
Who's
And if we're-
responsible?
by the way, if we're
This
not
is happening
responsible
every
enough...
few days, every few weeks. There's another mass shooting. It's
That's
not all
that's a
terrorism.
parenting and
But this
a
country
public
was
school
built
issue
on
more than
violence,
anything
and we
else.
continue to perpetrate it and celebrate it and embrace it. And at some point, we have to, as Vin said, we have to have a very candid discussion about where we are and what we're doing to fuel the problem that we pretend we
Does
want to
the
solve.
media play a role? I mean, are we to somehow maybe to blame for fueling this discussion? Perhaps?
Well, I think everybody has some degree of responsibility,
Absolutely.
Charlie. We all do. Movies, records, just how we interact with each other, everything. I mean, it's okay. I mean, we live in a violent society.
Look
I
what's
mean,
been
we
on-
do.
Look what's been on television. No, pardon me.
No.
Has been on television for obviously last week, and understandably so because we're interested in it. But does somehow mentioning this gentleman's name and going into his ex-wife and what she knew? I mean, does that copycat? We all hear that phrase all the time.
I have refused
The
to
answer
mention his
is
name.
maybe it does, but at the same time, are we really expecting that to change and say, oh, let's just pretend like if we don't mention his name and don't show his picture, it'll never happen again?
And you
Let me
said,
tell you
what do we
something
do
else
about
about it.
So much
crazy?
deeper than that.
If you see something, say something. If his wife was aware that he had issues or he had the intent, she's guilty of the
You
whole no
can't.
snitch
You'll be
thing
looked
too.
at as politically
Well,
incorrect.
whatever.
They
But I'm
wouldn't say
saying, so
something
you
in San
risk public
Bernardino.
safety because you don't want to say anything.
They were
That's
afraid in
part of
San
the-
Bernardino of being called anti-Islamist Islamophobes. Look, to your point, I have not mentioned that man's name on my show. I think I did it once or twice. I don't even.
So you
and,
did.
and I
You
hate
did
when the
mention
media
it.
calls it a gay
I haven't mentioned
nightclub.
his name.
It's not a gay
me
nightclub.
either.
By the way, that was a nightclub. Those were Americans
Yes.
killed. Those weren't gay people killed. Those were Americans killed. So the whole thing is the media just wants to latch onto these kind of buzzwords and further divide us.
Well, there were
That's- wow.
there are some different
I'm
issues
not saying
there.
you guys do, but
Of course, it's the other guys.
Of course
never
not.
us.
But
It's the
there are
general. It's the default position. You know it. You know it's true if you listen.
I don't know about that. There are aspects that make it a hate crime versus terrorism. I think in the beginning, when something like this happens, there's a thirst for information. That's why it came out it was a gay nightclub. Then it later comes out that the shooter may have been gay himself. So there are a lot of moving parts here.
All crimes are hate crimes, by the way.
You are right about that.
All crimes.
That's why that information came out.
All right, let's hold this discussion up right here. We want to hear from you. Coming up, we are going to air your thoughts right on the air when we come back.
Welcome back. Now it's time for you to be a part of the discussion. Theron, first question to you from Frederick Williams. He says, let it rip. If the other foreign countries can ban guns, then we can too. It will cut down on a lot of the senseless killings and attacks. That was for you.
Can you repeat that? You were facing the other way. I couldn't hear you.
We just lost it. Basically, he said, if other foreign countries can ban guns, then we can too. It will cut down on a lot of the senseless.
Why should we ban guns when we're not like other countries? We have a Second Amendment.
Well, we have more shootings
freedom.
than any
We're not
other
like
country.
other countries. Other countries are not about freedom. They're about state being responsible for their citizenry. We're about individual and personal responsibility.
Let me get a question over here. Zepp writes, the more, give us to Karen, I think, the more they talk about gun control, the more guns they sell. When will they quit picking on gun owners? The FBI knew this guy, Karen.
Well, there are a lot of loopholes in the system, and Charlie, like we just said, there are a lot of layers to resolving this issue. So it's not a matter of picking on anybody. We need to address it at every point.
All right, next question. Millions of good people own guns, and they don't go around killing other people. It's a people issue.
I agree that they don't. But the fact of the matter is, if we're going to sell guns, we should have common sense, registration, and review, period.
Let's try this one here. Enough of taking away our rights. Second Amendment is the law. Van, you're a lawyer. It's the law.
Okay. Well, people want to say that, Charlie, and obviously you and I both know, as those who have studied the Constitution, that law was designed for a specific thing that no one wants to talk about today. It's probably pretty tough to do in 5-second soundbite.
Okay, Detroit 1701 says, I got my pistols in less than an hour. I got my rifles and shotguns in less than a half hour.
And that's the point exactly. They're too accessible without minimal review or approval.
Tyrone, take that one as well.
Well, first of all, the Second Amendment is about self-defense. It's the same as it was when they wrote it as it is today. So that's your
But it took this
graduate
guy
school
an
level
hour
in
to get his gun.
Second
Is that
Amendment.
enough for you? Should there be changes in at least how they give guns out?
I don't think there should be any law-abiding citizen that's proscribed from getting a firearm in any way.
All right, we have to end it right there. Tyrone, Van, Karen, thank you so much. That is it for this edition of Let It Rip Weekend.